gentlemen, this is Lions Den with another news and commentary. Now, a lot of people on YouTube, I want you to listen to me. And I know I got a lot of fans on YouTube, as well as Twitter, as well as Instagram, and on my Facebook page. This brother, Julius Jones, has less than 3 days, y'all. 3 days to live on this planet Earth. I'm gonna I received a text message from one of the people that's doing justice for Julius, and they want me to call the governor. It is too important. And when that person did what they did, I couldn't ignore it. I couldn't turn it down. Not one reason. Now, this brother right here is innocent, and I'm going to read the article from Innocence Project, and I left the governor's office number if you want to call the governor of Oklahoma, Governor Stitz. I left the name and the number of his office on my Facebook community page, on my YouTube community page. I'm sorry, my YouTube community page. But ladies and gentlemen, this brother don't deserve to die at all. He's innocent. So I'm gonna go ahead and read this article. This article comes from Innocence Project. It says 8 facts about Julius Jones, innocent on death row in Oklahoma. Now, this is an update, and this is like about about a week ago. It says Oklahoma's Pardon and Parole Board voted 3-1 recommend clemency for Julius Jones. Let me repeat that again. The Oklahoma's Pardon and Parole Board voted 3-1 to recommend clemency for Julius Jones on November 1st. The recommendation to commute Mr. Jones's death sentence to life in prison with the possibility of parole now goes to the Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitz for consideration. Mr. Jones is still scheduled to be executed on November 18th. That's 2 days away. Monday's recommendation from the board reaffirmed its recommendation following a previous hearing on September 13, 2021. Now, this is his life story, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you that don't know the situation about Julius Jones and what happened to him, and why I believe he's innocent, and why we all need to call the governor immediately to accept the parole board's decision on granting this young man clemency. So here's his whole story. Julius Jones has been on death row in Oklahoma for 19 years for the 1999 murder he's always said he has no part in. Mr. Jones, who is represented by federal attorneys Dale Bache and Amanda Bass, was convicted and sentenced to death at the age of 19 and has now spent half his life in prison waiting to be executed for a crime that new and compelling evidence suggests he didn't commit. More than 6.3 million people in county have signed a petition supporting Mr. Jones in his fight to prove his innocence in the killing of Paul Howell, a business person in Edmond, Oklahoma. Despite this, Mr. Jones' execution has been scheduled for November 18th. His is one of 7 people facing execution in Oklahoma in the next 6 months. If carried out, they will be the first execution to take place in Oklahoma since 2015. After a series of botched executions resulted in a statewide moratorium. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tell you the history of why this man is innocent. And this is according to Innocence Project. So here we go. Here's what you need to know about Julius Jones's case. Number 1, Julius Jones was at home having dinner with his parents and sister at the time of the murder. However, his legal team failed to present his alibi at his original trial. His trial attorney did not call Mr. Jones or his family members to the stand. That's number 1. Number two, Mr. Jones did not match the description of the person who committed the crime, which was provided by a sole eyewitness. The person who killed Mr. Howell was described as having 1 to 2 inches of hair, but Mr. Jones had a shaved head. Number three, a man named Christopher Jordan matched the eyewitness hair description, but claimed only to have been the getaway driver and not the shooter at trial. He was the state's star witness against Mr. Jones. In exchange for testifying that Mr. Jones was the shooter, Mr. Jordan was given a plea deal for his alleged role as the getaway driver. He served 15 years in prison and today he is free. Number four, three people incarcerated with Mr. Jordan at different times have said in sworn affidavits that Mr. Jordan told each of them that he committed the murder and framed Mr. Jones. None of these three men have met Mr. Jones, and they do not know one another. And none of them have been offered a shorter sentence or a sentence in exchange for disclosing Mr. Jordan's confessions. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to stop you right there. You saw the reasons why Julius Jones needed to be set free. Or, let me take that back, need to spend the rest of his life in prison with the possibility of parole. Witness testimony even said, ladies and gentlemen, that Julius Jones wasn't there at the time. The DNA even not even matched. It was him. And it took Christopher Jordan even say he confessed of the crime, but put it on Julius Jones instead. Now, and the reason why that this court sentenced Julius Jones to the death pit or to death is because he had a public defender, and the public defender don't know how to do a case at all. He's very inexperienced. That's the only reason why that that Julius Jones has basically was sentenced to death. So let me continue this. It says Mr. Howe, a white man, was killed in a predominantly white neighborhood. Immediately, then the district attorney, Bob Macy, characterized the crime as an act of violence committed by black men fueled by drugs. This narrative was perpetrated by media coverage. The officer who arrested Mr. Jones called him the N-word and dared him to run, then implied he would shoot him if he did. 11 out of 12 juries at Mr. Jones' trial were white, which is the predominantly white jurors, and one juror referred to Mr. Jones by the N-word and suggested that he be taken out behind the courthouse and shot. 1/3 of the district attorney's Macy's death penalty convictions have been overturned due to prosecutorial misconduct. Many of those whose convictions were vacated are black people. To date, 10 people sentenced to death in murder cases in Oklahoma have been exonerated. And then basically, if you want to get involved, you want to sign a petition and everything else, you can do that. You just go to innocentprocess.org and do that, or go to justiceforjulius.org and support them with that. And let me say this: when I receive a text from the person who's for Justice for Julius, I couldn't turn it down, not one time. I mean, during that time, ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot of other stuff going on, but this is an innocent man. He had a scholarship to play for the University of Oklahoma, a basketball scholarship. He was athletic. And so now, at 19, he was sentenced to die for a crime he didn't commit. And if you want to call the governor, I left the number on my community page on YouTube. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is important. We have 2 days to save this man's life. 2 days. Because he is expected to be executed by November 18th. So we have to make calls. We got to call the governor to accept the parole board's rights to have to Julius Jones to have clemency. It's the only way. Y'all let me know what you think about this. I mean, this man don't deserve to die. And the guy who did the crime even confessed to other people, but decided to blame it on Julius Jones. But this brother right here, he deserves justice because the thing of it is that he didn't do this crime, and it's time to end this. Y'all let me know what you think. Like, click, subscribe, and remember to click the notification bell for all the news and commentary. With that being said, this Lions signing off. Deuces.